As we continue to mark 1 year since the deadly January 6th attack, we want to look at the historical significance of the storming of our Capitol building. According to a recent CBS News poll, 68% of Americans, more than two-thirds, believe that that attack was a sign of increasing political violence to come. Only a third saw it as an isolated incident. Joining me now are CBS News political contributor Joel Payne and CBS News chief political analyst John Dickerson. Good morning to both of you. I'm very glad you're here to provide some depth and some background to what got us here. Joel, I want to begin with you. We're at a moment politically in this country where the two sides don't just think the other side is wrong. They think the other side is a threat, immoral even. How did we get to that point, and how do we get out of it?
There's so many root causes. I think the interview that you did with the two voters earlier, I think, indicates some of those institutional breakdowns, right? Belief in media, belief in government. Those things have all gone by the wayside over the last 2 decades. Also, when you just consider the fact that thinking about, January 6th, so many voters feel like every election is a life or death event. They feel like if I lose, if the other party wins, it means doom for me. And I think that has spelled doom for our democracy.
Yeah. John, we are at a point where it doesn't seem like there's a referee in American life. People don't trust Congress, they don't trust the courts, they don't trust the media, so who can step in? But you also hear people say, hey, we've had political violence before. How is this different?
To the referee point, a lot of American democracy relies on us to be our own referees. And what we've learned on January 6th is that when you forget about all the traditions and rules that were sort of more agreements, when you let all those drop, you allow violence to rush in. If you think about political violence in America, there was a period where you showed you were a partisan by fighting in the streets. So we have had that before the Civil War, obviously, but then even in the 60s. But that's not to say that we've seen this before. What was extraordinary about January 6th is you've never had a person of such high political power, you can't get any higher than the president, take such direct aim right at the heart of democracy. And what is the heart of democracy? That you can peacefully transfer power. And that's what President Trump tried to undermine, both by inciting the rioters, but also in what he tried to do at the Department of Justice in getting the votes overthrown, and also what he tried to do in the states.
And John, what's interesting is that if you look for the first reference to a stolen or illegal vote in the career of Donald Trump as a politician, it's the Iowa caucus. And then as recently as last month, press releases again referring to a stolen election.
Iowa caucus in 2016.
2016,
That's right. And then he said it in the general election consistently in 2016. So this has been something, part of what January 6th was is a lot of gasoline was thrown on the floor. And as you point out, it was 4 years before even the event here. And that gasoline started to accumulate. And part of that also includes the idea that basically, as Joel was talking about earlier, that the opposition was not the opposition, it was the enemy. And that if you dehumanize them, once you dehumanize them enough, well, then anything goes. And that's what we saw here.
So, Joel, when Donald Trump goes away or leaves the stage of public life, is this all over? Does the threat recede?
Well, fortunately not. Also, when you think about the individuals who were here last January 6th, there were everyday Americans. There were also office holders, people who are running for office. I think I saw a report that nearly 36 of those people, maybe even more, are actually running for office. So you're talking about individuals that took this ultimate act who are going to be at the levers of power. And also, the Republican Party has gotten more extreme. They have not backed off. There's no political incentive for them to back off of their January 6th position.
Do you want leaders to lead more, or do you have hope that these voters are going to, in their communities and conversations amongst themselves, come to a different conclusion about the country's future?
So this is a thing in politics that I think we've always struggled with is, do the people lead the leaders or do the leaders lead the people? And I think in this situation, you need leaders who have guts to stand up. It was tough for Mitt Romney. It was tough for Lindsey Graham when they were harassed at airports last year. They've got to have the gumption to deal with that, to push back on their voters and say, this is wrong. They've got to have their own John McCain moment like he had in 2008 on the campaign trail.
And as Karl Rove writes about in the Wall Street Journal today, Karl Rove, who's no shrinking partisan, he says the Republicans have a heavier burden when talking about January 6th. There were denunciations on January 6th a year ago, but a lot of those have slipped into the background. And his argument is that Republicans need to be as clear today as they were then about the fact that this was a criminal terrorist attack, that it was incited by Donald Trump, and that the Republican Party can't survive if it has tried struck with that business.
Yes. The FBI is investigating this as a domestic terrorist incident, to your point. Gentlemen, thank you both. We appreciate it.